And I really do see this in the future, all freight will largely be coordinated autonomously with AI talking to each other. But I think 90% of tasks will largely be handled by AI models. I think a lot of industries will be like this, but I think trucking the most of all, because it's really, again, just data back and forth, and AI is like really, really good at that.
Hey, I'm Oscar. This is Tech for Supply Chains, and this is your front row seat to the people, ideas, and technologies that are making the world move. So if you're enjoying this series, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for being here. All right, everyone, we're live with our episode. So today we have Abdul Basharat from Cartage AI. So welcome to Tech for Supply Chains, Abdul. We're really happy to have you here. So Abdul, you're co-founder and CEO of Cartage AI, which recently launched Wilson, which is a new logistics AI tool. So thanks for joining us today. So let's start getting to know you and Cartage a bit more. Why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself? You've had an interesting career from being a pilot to working at McKinsey and then focusing on logistics. What got you interested in logistics and why did you start a...
Yeah, well, one, thanks for having me. Two, I think like most people, I kind of stumbled into logistics. I don't think anybody dreams of moving trucks when they're young. Yeah, I started my career. So I'm from Canada, started my career training as a pilot. All I wanted to do was fly planes. I was in the Canadian military for a bit, training to be a search and rescue pilot. That didn't work out, left, went to business school. I worked in consulting for a bit, so like McKinsey and other places. Really didn't like it. I wanted to be a lot closer to the value I wanted to build. And I ended up at a very early stage startup at the time called Rose Rocket, which was based in Toronto. Rose Rocket is it's a Y Combinator company. They are a TMS for freight brokers and carriers, trucking companies. So I was early on sales and then I was a product manager there. So that's kind of like where the logistics background came from. Really honestly kind of fell in love with logistics. Like it's so important. It's so grounded as a product person. And I think you can relate. It's very easy to like articulate value. And it's so simple, like get something from A to B and get it at the lowest price, but it can also get very, very nuanced and complicated. So that's kind of my background.
Being at
Yeah.
Being at the TMS company at Rose Rocket, what problems did you see that needed fixing, right? Because we see a lot of tech players and lots of tech-enabled brokers, etc. So what problems did you actually see that needed to be fixed that gave you the willingness to take that leap and leave an established company to start something?
I mean, logistics is largely a data problem. You have the data of something needs to get picked up. You have the data of somebody can pick it up and they have a truck available at a certain time. And then you have the data of the delivery location. And then there's a bunch of data in the middle that's in like documents and stuff like that. So I was the network product manager, we called it at Rose Rocket. We were trying to solve the data and collaboration problem from a TMS perspective. So, hey, if a broker has a TMS, if a carrier has a TMS, the TMS systems can talk to each other, and then we solve the problem. Everyone, I think, is kind of just trying to get people in trucking out of emails and out of phone calls and out of like documents. And people have been working on that for like years and years. So you have like the convoys, hey, use an app. Same thing with like Uber Freight. You have all these like tech brokers trying to do different things. And we try to do the same thing at Rose Rocket as well. I think what made me change and start my own thing was really like the AI coming out, where for the first time, like I think tech historically has been, hey, trucking, change for tech. Hey, stop emailing, use this app, stop using documents, use this like, mobile thing. But now you can actually automate the data collection, automate the translation of the data without changing how anybody works. You want to keep using email, that's fine. But now AI can basically translate that into data. That was like the spurring of like, okay, like AI is a big leap in trucking. And there can be a lot done on the automation side and data side in trucking.
That's so powerful. We'll get into AI capabilities in a bit and we'll uncover everything around AI, or at least how it applies to logistics. Getting into the vision of Cartage. So how would the logistics industry look like if Cartage vision becomes widespread?
Yeah, I think long-term vision is like, and I really do see this in the future. All freight will largely be coordinated autonomously with AI talking to each other. There will be a shipper AI, there will be a carrier AI, maybe there'll be a broker layer in the middle as well. But largely, I think it'll just be AI talking to each other. You will still need people, I think, to build relationships, to handle escalations. But I think 90% of tasks will largely be handled by AI models. I think a lot of industries will be like this, but I think trucking the most of all, because it's really, again, just data back and forth. And AI is like really, really good at that.
Sure. And it's unstructured data, right? So it's
Yeah.
in multiple formats, etc. So I think I want to double click into what you're saying about AI and the different trends that we're seeing. So we're hearing a lot of headlines of AI becoming cheaper and more models and DeepSeek, etc. But it is a reality that AI is now capable of doing more and more, right? So it can interact with different tools. It can connect to voice. It can connect to video. It can connect to your TMS, right? So for you, what's the most exciting technology trend that you're seeing in logistics and why do you find it exciting?
Yeah, I think it's also important to take a step back because, like, we use the word AI. It's not AI, it's a language model. Basically, we have a new technology that can turn words into data, and humans communicate largely in words. So, the way we communicate now, machines can understand, whether that communication is in an email, a document, whatever. But you can take that unstructured data, which is words, turn that into structured data that machines need to read and interpret things. I think, in terms of technological trends in trucking, one, what I'm seeing is a lot of openness to AI. So when we released Wilson and Wilson talks to trucking companies, we were afraid that people wouldn't be open to it. But people are actually super open. They're like, "Hey, Wilson, good morning." They're super, super nice to Wilson. Like it's actually really cool to see.
People notice it's an AI assistant or an AI agent called Wilson? Or have you had any case where they really confuse Wilson with a person?
We've had cases. So we had a big debate on this. Like, should we be honest? That's an AI, or like kind of just put it out there. In our email signature, it says, "Wilson, hi, I'm an AI freight coordinator. I work." So we sell the AI to shippers and manufacturers. So the Wilson works for the manufacturer. So if we shine like Acme Shipper, they build an email for Wilson. It's like wilson@acmeshipper.com. So he represents the manufacturer. And we have in an email, "Hey, Wilson works for Acme Shipper, built by Cartage, blah, blah, blah." But we've had carriers not notice at all that it's an AI. And I do think there's also a big delta between AI done well and AI done poorly. I like to think that we're doing it well. And if done well, it actually, essentially, you can't really tell the difference. And yeah, we've had people not notice.
That's incredible. We'll dive deeper into what a great AI implementation looks like. And hopefully, you can tell us a bit about some success cases with your customers and maybe some learnings as well, right? So, beyond AI and beyond the fast moving technology that we're dealing with, we're also seeing a lot of different trends that are changing the way in which logistics is behaving, right? So we're seeing things like tariffs, we're seeing trade wars, the freight recession that, I mean, we've had 30 months of a freight recession. How can technology like Wilson or Cartage more generally help logistics teams within those manufacturers deal with these changes and uncertainties?
I think, again, it kind of goes back to data. With tariffs, it's very hard to know what's going on. We actually released, we're not customs brokers, but we released a tool called Tariff Wilson that it's free on our website. And basically, anybody can go in. We've basically trained Wilson to absorb all of the latest news on tariffs because it seems to change every single day. So instead of you going and needing to read 50,000 different articles about like what's changing, basically you can just ask Wilson and Wilson will tell you because he has all the articles basically in his data set. So I think, again, it goes back. It's just easier access to data. Something that like would have taken you an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to understand now can take you a couple of minutes. So the speed of that translation, I think, is a big thing. Largely all of our customers are basically saying like, "Hey, I'm drowning in tariffs." And that is one of the reasons we built Tariff Wilson.
That's super interesting. So if we kind of take a step back, and what you're describing is AI helps us simplify a lot of data and make it easy to digest for people to make better decisions. And I think from the other side of the table, you're also saying we can structure unstructured data and make it actionable by putting it into a system that can take action, right?
Yes. And then you can also translate that back into structured output as well. One example, and we have not got into this, I can see some doing it though, is really helping with like RFPs, both building RFPs and analyzing RFP responses as well, which is like huge amount of text. How do you read through all of it? Again, LLMs and AI models can basically help you do that.
Perfect. I think we're getting into the most interesting piece, which is actually uncovering what's under the hood for people to understand what actually are AI agents, how do they work, and what do I get out of an agent? Because we've seen lots of different definitions, assistants being coined as a term by some people, agents as another thing. But at the end of the day, can you tell us at Cartage and in the San Francisco tech scene, what are agents? And for example, in Wilson, what is it doing behind the scenes?
Got it. I mean, underlying technology, Wilson can understand words and Wilson can predict the next words that come after those words. That's how language models work. Some people argue that's intelligence, and that's actually how humans think. Like we receive words, like you say something to me, I process those words, and my brain analyzes the words I repeat back. Other people say it's not true intelligence. What that doesn't matter. What matters for logistics is that again, what Wilson can do now is read an email from a trucking company. Hey, we have a truck available at this time, at this date, and turn that email into something that matters for your business. And at the same time, also write emails to those trucking companies. So it can take in your system, like let's say you have a TMS or you're using Cartage, you have this shipment available at this time. Wilson can write an email to a trucking company. Hi, do you have a truck available for this shipment at this time? This was not possible before language models. A person had to do it. Now that is possible. Baseline, that is just like a step change in what is possible with technology. Go ahead.
It was not possible also because you could not connect the LLM to the tools that required to be connected, right?
Exactly.
How have you seen that space evolve over time?
So in terms, we're shifting a little bit, but in terms of going back to the question, was like, what is the most exciting technology? To me, it's actually operator models. One of the other biggest issues in trucking for any tech company is these ancient systems. Like you talk to this shipper, they're on this ancient AS400 system, or they're in this like super old school system that has no API. You can't connect to it. What do you do? Now you can basically train AI agents like a Wilson to log into that system as if it's a person, pull data, and translate it back into whatever system like Cartage, etc. So integrations are basically a thing of the past. Every time we talk to these large enterprise companies, like, hey, how do you handle integrations? I had to pay like $200,000-$300,000 before. Now it's like, no, we can just give Wilson a login. He can log in like a person, and like you're good to go. So that's actually, I think, one of the most exciting things. But like really, like Wilson is literally like a logistics team. He can log into your systems, log into your ERP, create shipments within our system. He can email carriers, get rates, book the load, email the shipper, hey, this is going to be picked up at this date, email the consignee, here's the ETA, literally replicating a person.
That is super exciting. I'm sure the audience hearing that runs a big logistics team with lots of people doing that repetitively day in, day out, they're imagining how this will impact their operation, right? So my question for you is, how do you think in the following 2 or 3 years, with this technology and the rate of acceleration that we're seeing, how will those logistics teams look like in the following years?
I think you always need people, but you'll need less of them. I think there's multiple areas where you basically can reduce costs. One is reduce headcount. Two is optimize decision making. So when selecting vendors, selecting carriers, usually people just kind of give the load to like who they know. AI models can actually like look at, okay, so Wilson basically is analyzing cost, service performance, and then also how quickly people respond to email. So going beyond that as well. So making better decisions on which carriers to give the load to. And then three, also just going a lot deeper, like freight auditing, freight consolidation in a way that like previous systems can't do. So yeah, reduce headcount, better decision making, and then also better like freight consolidation, freight decisions as well.
Perfect. Which percentage of tasks do you think will be kept by humans versus things that are delegated completely to AI?
I think all routine tasks should be handled by AI. I do think escalations should today and probably in the future should be handled by people. That's why you have people there. I also think relationships should be built by people as well. Relationships in trucking are important because like the market is always shifting. You want relationships with your carriers. I'm actually a bit more down on voice AI in trucking than I think other people are. I think other people are very excited about voice AI. I'm not very excited. I think the reason you call somebody is something went wrong. You want a person to do that, not AI. And if everybody's just using voice agents, I think it gets very, very commoditized very, very quickly. In terms of percentage, I think so. At Cartage, we're at about like 85% of like Wilson is doing everything. That number is just going to get higher and higher. I think at some point we'll get to like 95 to 97%. And then I think people still manage like 3 to 4%.
That's an interesting take, particularly regarding the voice AI. We've seen kind of lots of traction and companies making headlines of getting lots of traction with voice AI. But I agree with you that relationships and that human touch is hard to automate. And typically it's because there's an escalation, something needs to happen. But there are also certain transactional things that take place, like booking a load that may be automated. And I think there will
Yeah, or
be a
like scheduling an
balance.
appointment, you could use voice AI for stuff like that. The other, I don't know how technical we want to get into. The other reason I am not super bullish on voice AI is the latency. You cannot program. So in order to avoid hallucinations in AI, and this gets to like good AI versus bad AI, you need to bake in some level of a looping where the AI checks its own work. And you can't really do that in voice because you don't have latency.
If you can translate for the rest of the audience, what's latency and why does it matter?
Latency is how long the AI has to process information and respond. So on a phone call, we're talking conversationally, I have to respond immediately. In an email, I can reply to you in 3 minutes. Like that's still pretty fast to you. In an AI world, that's like slow. But for example, when Wilson writes an email, it's not one LLM or one AI model. There's like a planner. So it's like planning what is the response? I need to plan what I'm going to do. Then there's like an executor. Okay, I'm going to take this plan and execute it. Then there's like a critic who's like checking the work of everybody else. And if something's wrong, they can restart. And that's how you avoid hallucinations and make sure that the final output is like perfect. So an email is perfect, right? You can really automate it, very high accuracy. You cannot do that in voice. You just have to input, respond as quickly as possible. And that's where you get a lot of hallucinations, and voice agents are just not as I think, reliable. They just hallucinate a lot more.
That's great. That's a great insight. All right. The other question that I had for you is we're seeing companies like OpenAI and Anthropic make a lot of progress on things that seem pretty horizontal. For example, using the browser, right? Or leveraging voice or other stuff, right? Like 11 Labs is super famous for voice, specifically for logistics and supply chain. Do you think the future of successful implementations will look like using a horizontal, more of a platform approach where you build on top of horizontal technology, or you go deeper into a specific vertical and really nail, for example, orchestration of freight versus using a more horizontal technology? What's your insight to that?
I think it depends on the problem you're trying to solve. I think some things are very easily commoditized, like something like accounts payable automation or auditing freight invoices. You do not need a vertical solution. I think technology will get good enough that you can just very easily train a model to like understand what a freight invoice is and read it. Connecting that back into your systems, maybe you have other horizontal tools and you kind of like scrape something together. So that feels like something that will get commoditized. And I think anyone who's just like full vertical API automation today, like it's just like you're going to get killed. But things that are like much more nuanced that require connections between like multiple different systems and parties and requires more intelligence, I think you need a vertical system too. Like OpenAI is never going to build a model that's just going to be super intelligent enough to like coordinate freight by itself. It'll need some training. You also need to bake it into system. You have to connect it with the systems like the ERPs of the manufacturer. You'll need to understand how to generate like a bill of lading and a rate confirmation, understand who is a shipper, what's a consignee, when do I check in with trucking companies. That's way too nuanced for like someone like an OpenAI to do. So I think that's the delta. Are you doing something that's actually requires human intelligence? Then, probably need a vertical product.
That's a great insight. And do you think expertise and knowledge, human knowledge in the domain will be as critical as it is today? Or do you think that will be something that you can fine tune into a model that can then be replicated across different agents?
So I think holistic domain knowledge, like how do I coordinate freight? I don't think that's very special. You could ask ChatGPT right now, how do I coordinate freight? I'll give you like a semi-decent answer. But how do I coordinate freight for my manufacturing company? I think that is much more nuanced. And baking that into the AI model and training, okay, like here is my contracted carriers, here are my shipments. These guys need a BOL, these guys don't. At this pickup location, it needs like a lift gate, or at this time, like shipments need to be heated. Here, shipment needs to be refrigerated. Like that is a lot more nuanced. Largely, I think what we're trying to do basically is like you have Wilson, this AI for intelligence, and then you need to set them up for each customer. There's some like bespoke setting up process as well. I think that's kind of like the delta. Knowledge for your company specifically, knowledge of how to coordinate freight. I don't think it's that special.
Perfect. Great. I'll move on to the next section, which is actually understanding what real world results we can expect from something like Wilson. So if you can give us some metrics, some real success scenarios where Wilson has improved some key metric for your customer, it would be ideal. And then I think I want to get really tactical about the challenges in adoption. It would be great to hear just what are the main things that your customers have been able to see after starting using Wilson for a month or 2 months. What are the main things that they're using Wilson for, and what results are they getting?
Sounds good. There's two types of customers. One is you're a larger like manufacturer. You have like contracted carriers. You're looking to like centralize and you're looking to like reduce headcount. And then two is you have no logistics team and you maybe rely largely on freight brokers and you're looking to like build carrier direct relationships and you're looking for more like managed trans. The first one, larger carrier. So we're rolled out to like a larger manufacturer and we basically completely automated their supply chain. So reduced headcount by like about like 4 people. And then we're also starting to like track all of their vendor performance as well. We're auditing all of their freight invoices. And then we are also starting to consolidate freight. So largely, if you have contracted carriers, if you're looking at your overall freight budget, including headcount, you can see anywhere from like a 5 to 10% reduction there. That is like larger kind of established manufacturer. Then a smaller customer, the big thing is, again, the headcount reduction. So you don't need to hire a logistics person. You don't need to buy software. So you don't need to buy a TMS. And then we can also cut out the broker and go carrier direct. So each logistics person, maybe you have to hire like 2 logistics people. It's like 120K. Buy a TMS, it's like 30K. So you're at 150. Broker is probably charging you anywhere from 10 to 15%. So let's say you have $2 million that you're spending on freight. We're saving you anywhere from 200 to like 400,000 a year, basically.
That's a lot. It's super exciting and encouraging to hear. What are the main challenges that you've seen in that adoption from those shippers, those manufacturing companies, wholesalers that do have a logistics team and now they're using something like Wilson? How has that transition looked like and what got them to actually try it out? Because it seems a big leap, right?
I think it feels very alien at first. I think just a very nuance of talking to this thing that is like like nobody is used to using software like that. You're used to like clicking buttons. Cartage, you largely use conversationally. So you like talk to Wilson as if he's like part of your team. I also think that people struggle to like understand like what exactly are we. Like sometimes like they're like, oh, okay, like are you a broker? Are you like a TMS? I think once they kind of get over that and be like, okay, Wilson's just like part of my team and he's helping me do my job and do my work, it becomes like a lot easier. If you look at Wilson like as like a broker, like someone like give like, partial freight to you or something like that, like it doesn't work as well. And then also if you try to use the system as like a TMS or something, like it's not supposed to, because it's not just Wilson by itself. It's if you look at Cartage, it basically looks like a TMS. So you have Wilson and then you have like system and shipments. But really, all you need to do is talk to Wilson. It's not a system where you interact to do work with. It does the work for you. The shipments and the TMS part is more just for visibility.
Right. You actually get outcomes,
So
right?
I think, sorry?
You actually get outcomes from talking to the person in the team, which is Wilson. It actually does something for you.
Exactly. Because largely, all you really need to do is like create the shipment, be there for like decisions like, hey, I can't find a rate under like this budget. But then Wilson basically does the rest. Also, you have to like not micromanage Wilson. Like we're really getting the weeds, but like, the same way if like I hired you to do a job and I started micromanaging you, it doesn't work. He's built to like do the thing. If you start micromanaging Wilson too much, it doesn't work either. You just like have to kind of trust him and let him do his thing, and be a little bit patient. Like Wilson's also not magical. if he emails 5 carriers or 10 carriers, he can't magically make them respond within like 3 minutes. And if the market rate is 2,500, he can't magically make it 2,000. You know what I mean? So I think some people, there's either very, very stupidly high expectations sometimes when we onboard people that like, he's just going to find these trucks that like nobody has ever found before. And he's just going to start saving us $500 on every load. It doesn't work like that. Like it's still largely the same trucking companies. Wilson is just good at finding as maybe more than a person could, but the market rate is the market rate. And that, or there's very low expectations. They just see it as like this like chatbot tool thing that is like, they're going to try it out, but they're not actually going to trust it to do the job. It's really somewhere in the middle where like, he's going to do the job, but like a really good logistics hire, basically.
I want to double click on that one because it feels like you actually need to trust that you will get the outcomes that you're actually hiring Wilson for, right? How does that process look like? And for successful customers that use the service, that use Wilson, how does that implementation look like? Like, what has to happen for someone to successfully roll out an AI agent that they can trust?
Usually you need to do it like slowly. We can start with the example of, okay, you're a smaller manufacturer. You overly rely on freight brokers. You know you're overpaying on freight by like 15, 20% because you're going to brokers instead of carriers. How does Wilson help you? The same way if you hire a logistics person tomorrow, they're not going to immediately cut out the broker and then start getting carrier direct rates. Step one, what we try to do is automate your existing supply chain. So how do you do things today? Let's take that over and let Wilson handle it completely. So you're going to these like 3 brokers or 4 brokers. Wilson can go to the brokers as well. We're not actually like that anti-broker. Wilson can go to brokers. And if they have good rates, they have good rates. And then let's slowly introduce carriers on the lanes that you run. So now instead of Wilson reaching out just to 3 brokers, he's reaching out to 3 brokers and also like, 5 or 6 carriers who run those lanes, either in the Cartage network or, in other kind of databases. And then slowly Wilson will incorporate more and more carrier direct like pricing into your lanes. And then over time, your supply chain will shift away from brokers and more to carrier direct. But Wilson cannot do it overnight. That like he just like magically knows all these carriers trust that you're going to pay them. It doesn't work like that. There is, by the way, a lot of friction in the industry, not even related to us, but of carriers actually working directly with shippers because there's so much fraud in the industry. That's a whole separate topic. But they trust brokers to pay them more than shippers, which is kind of funny. But anyway, there is like a slow thing. It's the same thing if you hired a really good logistics team. They're going to slowly optimize your supply chain. It's not going to happen from day one.
If a shipper wants to start using an AI agent tomorrow, what are some of the main takeaways that you've found that they have to go through to make an implementation successful? Like, is there like a low risk approach to start rolling things out other than going slowly and measured risk? Like, is there a good lesson that you've learned by implementing this in various customers that you've repeatedly found that works to get to that proof of concept?
Yeah, I think it depends on what problem you're trying to solve. I think really it's just about like starting somewhere. I wouldn't be afraid of AI technology. I would be afraid of like, there are definitely companies that are just like, there's a lot going on at the front and there's not like much substance underneath. But I wouldn't be AI in itself. Like it is technology that works. And if implemented correctly, like it is very, very useful. How would a shipper go about implementing AI? I would find a couple of problems. I would talk to your team, understand what are they spending a lot of time on. Some people spend a lot of time on freight coordination because it's all spot. If that's the case, I would start prioritizing AI solutions that can help with spot freight. Some companies, it's mostly contracted. They don't actually spend a lot of time on the freight coordination piece, but maybe you spend a lot of time auditing freight bills because it's all LTL. That's a really good place. But anything very, very repetitive that your team hates doing, I would actually prioritize AI solutions there. You don't have to start something like with a cartage that like is like the full shebang immediately, but just find those repetitive things and like just automate them and get them off of your team's plate.
That I've seen repeatedly while doing some of those implementations in other companies is how do I make sure that the AI is doing what it's supposed to do? So, how do you get the right observability? How do you get the right metrics? What have you seen work in some of the successful companies where AI is really working out?
I mean, it's definitely up to the engineers and then the team. It depends. In your question, are they buying a solution or building a solution?
That's a great topic we can go into. But let's say that they're buying a solution like Wilson. What are the main things that shippers should be monitoring and making sure that they're really on top of them to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And
So
building it yourself is another thing, right?
I think if you are buying an AI solution, you should look for two things. One is the AI hallucinating should not be your problem. It should be the company's problem. Cartage, if the AI hallucinates, it's not your problem. We have our own freight team who's looking at everything Wilson does. Something breaks or Wilson does something wrong, we fix it. It's not up to the manufacturer. Two, and I actually feel pretty passionate about this, the AI vendor should be charging for the work, not for the software. So if you are like an AI SDR company, I think that you should be charging for calls booked, not just a flat fee. If you charge a flat fee, the incentives are all wrong. You build the AI solution, hey, go deal with it. If it's called booked, you actually have to make the AI work. Same thing for us. We do not charge a flat fee. We charge a handling fee on shipments that are delivered. Our job is to deliver your shipments. Our job is not to sell you an AI service and get out of the way. That's why Wilson delivering shipments on time is our responsibility. It's not the manufacturer's responsibility. So that's, I think, the biggest thing I would look for.
That's super interesting. I think it will be interesting to cover how you see pricing models changing from traditional SaaS. We'll cover that in a bit. I just want to double down on the challenges in the adoption. I think I really want to get this for everyone out there listening, which is how does a successful implementation look like? And what are the main ways to get value out of AI quickly? So I think my main question for you is if we want to implement an AI service successfully in a manufacturing company or any shipper, how does a manager pick the right problem to solve? And what are the real AI capabilities right now versus getting bought on the hype of what will be possible?
Yeah. I mean, I do think logistics, like even today, you can largely replace 90% of the job of a logistics coordinator, even like a data analyst. Like if I'm a manager, really, I would just talk to my team. Like it's such a interesting human problem of like, hey guys, like what are you spending a lot of time on? And then just go find AI solutions for it. Um, or what are we lacking that we need to hire for, and could AI do it? So like when we look for like manufacturers to like sell to, we look for people hiring logistics coordinators. And then we're like, why are you looking to hire somebody when you could just basically use Wilson? So some of our more successful companies, they were like, okay, we're blowing up. We need to buy a TMS and we need to hire like 3 logistics people. And it's like, no, instead of doing that, just use Cartage. And you don't need to do that. So existing work, it's going up and up on your team's plate. How do you offload that? You can offload that to AI. So that's kind of like what I would look for. It's more of a human problem. Just go talk to your team. What are you spending a lot of time on? If you hired an intern tomorrow, what would you make them do? And that is probably your AI problem and solution that you're trying to look for.
I think that resonates a lot. Like, what can an intern do and treat the AI tool like an intern that can take a lot and will be working 24/7, right? The other thing, which I think is interesting to cover, is how does this new technology connect to the existing systems that shippers already have? Like, how do they connect to the ERP?
Yeah.
How do they connect to the visibility provider like a P44 or FortGuides? How does this new AI employee interact with some of the tools that logistics teams typically work with?
So I think that is actually the real beauty of AI in logistics is you don't need to change anything. You are using Oracle as your ERP. There's no complex integration. An AI model can log in, read Oracle's data, either update it or pull from it to create shipments. You are working with a trucking company. They have a tracking page on their website. That is how you get updates on your shipment. You can have an AI model log into the trucking company's website, input the tracking number, pull the update and bring that back to you. There is actually no changing the way they work. And that's really the beauty in this, because it's so hard to change how people work in this industry. You don't need to anymore. It doesn't matter if the carrier is super old school. Yeah, models are so flexible. And I think that's a real thing. I would really want anyone listening to this to really understand, like, there's no massive change management required that I think people are really used to with software. You can essentially replicate just a person.
If you would have said this probably 5 years ago, people would have deemed you crazy. Right now, it's actually possible. It's
No, it's possible.
impressive.
Even like the technology advancing so fast. Like if we were doing this podcast even 6 months ago, I would not be this confident but you like operator, there's this new like Manus. I don't know if you've seen Manus that came out of China. Operator model is like really good now. Like they used to kind of like not be great, but they're really, really good. But again, trucking is very simple. Like logging into a trucking company's website, like let's say they're a common carrier, inputting a tracking number, pulling back the ETA or the status of the shipment is not complicated. Like that is a very simple workflow.
That's encouraging to hear, really. All right, let's talk about business models and pricing. So we just discussed that traditionally software charges you for allowing you to log into a system and do something, and it's more an enabler. Right now, AI really allows you to get outcomes for your customer. So how do you think the pricing and the business models will evolve
Yeah.
in the coming years?
I'm personally very passionate on this subject. I think that it's very important for the company's incentives to be aligned with the customer's perspectives. I think historically, companies built software for people to use, and it was subscription based, right? Here is this TMS. It costs $2,000 a month. Go use it. Now software does the work for you. And I don't think you're selling software anymore. You're selling the work. And I think that pricing models need to align to that. At the end of the day, what is your AI solution doing? Is it auditing freight bills and capturing overcharges? Is it coordinating freight and making sure shipments are delivered on time? Whatever problem you're solving, you should charge for solving that problem, not for just like a flat service-based fee. So again, that's how we aligned our pricing model. We charge you if your shipment was delivered on time. We do not charge you for software. If the AI hallucinates, it's not your problem, it's our problem. And I think that completely aligns incentives and that allows us to like, sell the way we sell. There's the whole AI SDR thing. Like there's so many AI SDRs. You will not find a single one that charges you for like shipments, like calls booked. It's all just like flat fee. I don't care. Get out of the way. It's just like completely unaligned incentives. I do think the way tech companies price should change and adapt to like selling again the work, not just selling software.
I think that's a very good takeaway for the audience listening. If you're looking to hire an AI assistant, an AI agent, look for outcomes and try to get the most value out of that instead of relying on the AI as another tool, right? It actually has the capability of delivering results for you, which I think is very exciting.
And that's the way you should look at it as well, not as a tool, but as like a problem solver. And I think if the company is not willing to price based on outcomes, then they are not confident in their product and you should run away.
I love that. All right, so let's get practical. I think we should try to bring this down in the last section to how do logistics departments start using AI, and more importantly, how can they monitor that this AI capabilities that they're hiring are delivering the results that they want. So if you had to provide like a 5-step framework for them to evaluate where to dedicate resources, what to prioritize, and how to implement, what would be your
Yeah, it's interesting because the advice differs from like what we're doing, because we're doing like complete overhaul. Like we'll just manage logistics for you. And our goal is to completely automate your supply chain. So we're kind of doing everything holistically. So if you do want to be at the cutting edge of AI and technology, I think you'd go for like a solution like ours, which is like overhaul your supply chain, trust in AI and trust in the future. And largely today, it works as well, as long as you're working with like the right partner who knows how to implement it, which we believe we are. If you're looking to move a bit slower, I would actually look at horizontal solutions. So breaking this down, like you mentioned, step one, identify the problems, identify the most menial tasks in your company that are repetitive, that are not complicated, that just take up your team's time. Humans should not be spending their time today doing manual repetitive tasks. AI can handle it. Identify what those are in your company. In freight, it's largely a couple of things. It's like auditing freight. It's like sending emails for like rates, processing those rates, booking the load, and just sending like kind of routine emails back and forth. There are actually a lot of horizontal solutions that can like support that, but it requires a lot of work. It depends on how technically savvy you are, I think, as well. Because having the solution is one thing, baking that into like your tech stack or your way of working is like a whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, like if to like blanket advice, go automate your freight invoices right now. You're probably overpaying. Most companies are. You could probably reduce your entire freight budget by like 2% if you just go automate your freight bills. Because like humans are It's super annoying menial task. People are not like doing it that accurately. Like we've seen this across the board. It's like so trivial now for AI models to like read freight bills. You need some way to like connect that to whatever system stores your quotes and your rates, which I guess is kind of a problem. But if you can do that, like I think that's probably where every like manufacturer could start.
That's great advice. Perfect. And as AI becomes more powerful, we'll see more and more AI agents joining the workforce and delivering outcomes. How should supply chain leaders adapt, and what are the new skills that they have to gain to stay on the edge?
A good question. I think baseline understanding of like what AI models can do is like pretty critical. I think that like manufacturing cost is very, very important. And you can largely reduce costs by a lot using AI models. I think right now it's like a nice to have. At some point, when a lot of companies start to implement this stuff, it'll be like a need to have, or you literally cannot compete. I think largely in like the US supply chain, AI has a potential to reduce costs across the board by like anywhere from like 15 to 20%. So if you're like looking at that level of like magnitude, like you have to adopt. I would get started like pretty quickly and like adopt something, even if it's small, just like understand how it works. You don't need to like do something super, super big. In terms of core skills, it's really just about like some knowledge about like how AI models work and how to implement it with in your business. I really don't think it's like people think it's like rocket science. It's not that rocket sciencey. There's just like based on understanding of like, look, this is a new technology. Is it super intelligence? Who knows? But it can translate anything in your company that is unstructured data in words into real data and relay that data back to whoever you need to relay it to. So there's a lot you can do with the technology.
Yeah, that's great. And I think a good first step to take is actually use the consumer tools that are out there. So use ChatGPT, use Anthropic, use whatever tool that's out there to test out if what you're trying to automate can be automated with that chat interface. And then if that model can do it relatively easily without a lot of context, without a lot of fine tuning, then probably if you dedicate the resources, there's a good solution out there to solve for that problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's actually something like we take for granted in the tech world. Like I would do it all the time, right? Like, hey, can ChatGPT do this? Like you upload it to ChatGPT and see you can do it. I think a lot of people use it a two conversation. Like actually try like uploading a document. So like we use freight bills as like the most lowest hanging thing to like automate. Upload one of your freight bills into ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, hey, what's the cost on this? It'll tell you, and then you understand. Wow, I can read this document. So yeah, so that's a good point.
I think that's a great first step. And last question for you. Let's get contrarian. Let's get your most contrarian point of view on the industry and the technology. What's something that you really think that other people would not agree with?
And I think my most contrarian view, and I really respect them. I really don't think brokers will exist. I mean, sorry, I think brokers, so freight brokers, will get squeezed very heavily in the industry. I think they will always exist, but like not for like mass spot, like maybe like very specialized, like you only do like LTL reefer or something, you know what I mean? Like you're highly specialized. I think brokers will largely get squeezed. There's way too much cost savings by cutting out the middleman. I do want manufacturers and shippers to connect more closely with trucking companies. And I do think that will come, especially with AI handling a lot of like the routine communication that like has previously been really difficult. And I think largely it'll be better for everyone. Manufacturers have firsthand information. Carriers have the actual rate. They can make more money because carriers are getting super, super squeezed as well. Consumers will pay less. It's like generally better for everybody. I think that's one controversial opinion. The other controversial opinion, which I don't know if it's that controversial, but I think like 95% of communication in logistics will be handled by AI just talking to each other.
Amazing. All right, everyone. Abdul Basharat from Cartage AI. Thanks a lot for joining.
Cool. Thanks, Oscar. Thanks for having me.